Hey guys, welcome back to more homeowner association stories. In this video, a crazy HOA built 4 houses on my farm property without permission. I am not even part of this HOA. Let's dive right into the video to find out what happened. So first of all, I was never part of an HOA. My property sat right next to one, but I did not expect to have any issues with them since they had their own land and I had mine. Well, apparently that did not matter when a new HOA board took over the community. I have a large farm that spans several acres. It's been in my family for 3 generations and we have supplied the surrounding cities with corn and soybeans. About a year ago, I wanted to branch out into livestock, so after getting all of my proper permits and costs together, I started construction on a larger barn for cows. My mistake was getting involved in the construction. I'm not a young man anymore and I thought I'd help where I could to help the barn come up faster. Well, I was on a ladder when I slipped on a rung and ended up busting my leg up really bad. I was rushed to the hospital where I was told that thankfully it was a fracture and not a full break in the bone. I still would need surgery in order to repair some of the damage, so I was cooped up in the hospital for about 2 months for recovery and physical therapy. I have to hand it to the doctors, they did a great job of making sure I was taken care of even when there were days when I was itching to get out. Now during my recovery I had halted all construction on my land since I was not sure how much the hospital bill would be. I'm from the United States and even with insurance your bill can be in the thousands after surgery, so when I returned home after weeks of not being there, I was surprised to see a different construction company out in the field, building what looked to be 4 large houses. I approached the workers first just to understand what was happening here and they told me that they were hired by the neighboring HOA to expand their development. When I told them that they were building on my land, they just told me to go to the HOA board since they were the ones who gave the workers permission to start building initially. So that is what I did. I went straight to the HOA board and asked them what they thought they were doing when they decided to start building houses on my land. There were 6 people in total on the board and each one of them was quick to claim that the land was always theirs and they're just developing it as it is their right. As I said, the farm I am on has been in my family for generations, so I know that they are lying. I asked if they actually got someone out to check that the land was really theirs or if they just hired the construction company without any proof. Apparently that was the wrong thing to say because I was asked to leave and threatened to be sued if I got in the way of their construction. Now I was only a day out of the hospital for my fracture. I was tired and exhausted in a way that only people that have gone through physical therapy after surgery can be. A part of me wanted to get into one of the large harvesters that I have on my property and just destroy the construction work that the HOA had started, even if it would cost me a new machine. This whole situation was not something I wanted to deal with, but thankfully my wife was the one who helped me focus my frustration and anger on the more proper ways of facing this issue instead of getting a lawsuit slapped against my face. I hired a lawyer the next day after sleeping in my own bed and getting a full night of rest. Before I reached out to the lawyer though, I gathered up all of the information I had on my property. I had the deed, the original plans of the land that had been preserved and framed in our living room, and a few other documents that indicated that the land that the HOA was building on was still a part of my property. My lawyer thanked me for what I provided, saying that just having some of the original documents was a great start and she'd work with the county officers to get previous land surveys. She said that for the time being she'd reach out to the construction company that the HOA hired in order to get them to stop working until this was resolved. It was a relief to see the cranes and bulldozers finally leaving when I returned home from the lawyer's office. My lawyer did advise me to make sure to record or note any instances where the HOA board or a representative of the company reached out. After the construction workers left, I got a call from a number I didn't know and let it go to voicemail on my phone. Apparently one of the HOA board members had found my phone number and went on an almost 10-minute rant about how I was ruining their prospects for their expansion of their development and that they would make sure I was left with nothing by the time they were done with me. I sent a copy of the recording over to my lawyer immediately and she seemed almost thrilled about the escalation they took. They keep making mention to leaving you without land or to take what they believe belongs to them, she explained. In a case like this where they haven't even shown you any instances of ownership over the land that they are talking about, I'm obligated to ask them for proof and to show them the evidence that you've already given me to prove that you own the land. This will only make our case stronger regardless of whether or not it makes it to court. Well, that was something that I hadn't taken into account first when I went to a lawyer. In some cases like this where there was overwhelming evidence against one of the groups that were going to court, there was a chance that the other party would attempt to make a settlement out of court just so there was not a mark against them that could be easily searched on the internet. I get it, especially with how so much is shared across Facebook and things, but even outside of the internet, court records are available at county offices and are published in newspapers sometimes, so the information is out there for people to search for. My lawyer got back to me about a week after I sent her the phone call, making sure I was aware that she was reaching out to the HOA with the charges brought against them, including criminal trespassing, property damages, and was even trying for a threat charge due to the phone message that was left from them. I expected the HOA's legal team to fold since I had all of the evidence that the land they were so insistent on working was my property. Unfortunately, the HOA wanted their day in court and my lawyer had to oblige them. I'll admit I was nervous for the court date. I thought that the HOA had found something that would bring my ownership into question or something else that they didn't reveal to my lawyer right away that could bring my case toppling down. I think they did not expect me to show up for the court date, but when I did, the 6 people that I spoke 2 weeks earlier were looking at me like they saw a ghost. The trial lasted just a day. My lawyer was amazing and literally spelled out the case for me being taken advantage of while I was not around my home to tell the HOA to stop construction. She had found documents from the most recent survey of my land that showed where my property line ended in terms of the HOA's development, and it was nowhere near where the HOA had started their construction. The jury took less than 15 minutes to deliberate. The judge called out the HOA board members for taking advantage of me and my family's land and requested that they pay for any damages that they caused during their construction that would have impeded me in my construction of a livestock barn. It was a happy ending and one that felt well earned. The shells of the 4 houses were demolished and I was able to continue with my plans to incorporate livestock onto my farm. It's been nearly a year since all of that happened and the HOA board was replaced with decent people. They've spoken with me to not only apologize for their predecessors' behavior, but to confirm where my property is so that they don't encroach on it in the near future. And the next one is an Am I the A-hole story titled Am I the A-hole for uninviting my adoptive brothers from my wedding after they said they don't see me as family? And if you've watched until here, please don't forget to like the video and maybe even subscribe to the channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. Thank you so much. So I'm a 32-year-old man and I'm getting married to my longtime girlfriend soon. What should be one of the happiest moments of my life has turned into a heartbreaking ordeal because of a deepening rift in my family. So to give you some background, I am my parents' biological son, and when I was 12 they adopted 2 boys who were biological siblings. These were Jack, who was 8, and Liam, who was 5. From the very beginning it was clear that things were gonna be tough. Jack came with severe behavioral issues due to some intense trauma. I'll spare the details, but it was really significant and I tried my hardest to be understanding, but living with him was nothing short of exhausting. His outbursts were constant and I often felt like I was walking on eggshells, terrified of setting him off. As we grew older, I continued to try to be there for Jack despite everything. A few years ago, Jack fell into a devastating drug addiction. I stood by him through his darkest moments, supporting him through rehab and doing everything I could to help him get back on his feet. It was draining and heartbreaking, but I did it because I loved him and believed that despite our challenges, we were still brothers. The situation came to a head recently at a Sunday dinner at my parents' house. My son was working on his summer homework, which involved creating a family tree. He innocently asked Jack if he wanted to be included, and Jack just flat out said no. He didn't want to be a part of it because, in his exact words, "We're not real brothers." He said it so casually, like it was the most obvious thing in the world, with no regard for how much it would cut me to the core. I was utterly stunned, but what shattered me even more was that Liam, who I've always felt closer to, just sat there in silence and he did not say a word. He did not defend me or even acknowledge how hurtful Jack's words were, he just let it happen. I've tried so hard to be supportive of both of them, especially Jack despite the endless challenges, so for Jack to say that and for Liam to do nothing, it felt like a gut punch. It was as if they were both telling me that I was never really truly part of their family. I decided to uninvite both Jack and Liam from my wedding. My fiancé has been nothing but supportive of my decision, but my parents are furious. They've made it clear that if Jack and Liam are not invited, they won't attend either. It feels like history is repeating itself, with my parents once again prioritizing Jack over me, no matter how much it hurts me. I'm absolutely heartbroken that my parents would choose to miss my wedding rather than support me in this. I know Jack has been through a lot, but I've done everything I can to be there for him and for Liam despite all the heartache. And now I feel like I'm the one being punished for finally standing up for myself and setting some boundaries. So, Reddit, am I the a-hole for uninviting my brothers after they said they don't see me as family, even if it means my parents won't come to my wedding? And here, Ripe Stars, let me know in the comments what you think about this story. Do you think OP is the a-hole here or not? Some people in the comments said, why was your kid even asking him in the first place? That could have hurt them too. As a child, it would have never occurred to me not to include my aunts and uncles in a family tree. What did you say in front of your child to plant the idea that he needed to ask them? And did you correct your kid and say that of course his uncles should be on the family tree? You are also to blame in how this rift started, because whether intentional or not, you also did not correct the idea that you are not real brothers/family and it was your child that asked the question. Usually people feel uncomfortable correcting other people's children in awkward situations like this. It falls on the parents to talk to their child and get to the root of things. And then OP answered, well, because he is 5 and just wanted to show off what he was doing, I've never said anything to plant an idea that they are not my brothers. He does not even know that they're adopted. Not because it's something that we hide, it just hasn't ever been something we really discuss as a family. Also, add uncles and aunties to the family tree was an optional extension, and he said it in a way of, come and help me add you in if you wanna be, not you don't deserve to be in the tree. You're honestly clasping at straws here. I have no issue with someone labeling me as the a-hole, but don't just make up context to decide it. OP also said, I don't blame them or him for his drug addiction. Jack and Liam had truly horrible things happen to both of them as children. That is stuff I won't get into here, but you can understand it was the type of stuff that leaves lifelong scars on you, even with the buttload of therapy they've gone through. One time Jack spoke to me about how when he's high on drugs, it is the only time in his entire life where he does not constantly remember and the only time he ever feels at peace. Obviously, I should not be the one who is constantly picking up the pieces of him, but I can 100% understand why he got into drugs. However, he is still an a-hole though. And then OP further said, the family tree and Jack's comment was the only catalyst for the argument that happened, and yes, there would have been no issues with Jack being included in the family tree. Update to the story, buckle up because things have taken a wild turn. After hearing from so many of you, I decided I needed to talk to Liam. We met at a pub and I just laid it all out there, how hurt I was when he didn't say anything after Jack made that awful comment about not being real brothers. I was half expecting him to defend himself, but what I got was something entirely different. Liam confessed that he's been living in fear of Jack for years. He told me he kept quiet that night because he was terrified of setting Jack off, not because he agreed with him, and then he dropped the bombshell. Despite being Jack's biological brother, he has felt just as much of an outsider in our family as I have. The constant pressure from our parents to cater to Jack's every whim has worn him down too. Liam assured me that he has always seen me as his brother and that he regrets not standing up for me sooner. Hearing that was a huge relief, honestly. He is completely on my side now, and we agreed that if Jack cannot respect me as a brother, he has no place at my wedding. Or in our lives. But just when I thought things could not get any more intense, my parents decided to make everything worse. I sat them down and explained why I uninvited Jack, hoping they'd understand. Instead, they threw down an ultimatum. If Jack is not invited, they are not coming to my wedding. No room for discussion, no empathy, just flat out refusal. I was gutted. After all these years of putting Jack's needs above mine, this is how they repay me. I could not hold back anymore. I let out all the anger and frustration I've been bottling up for years. I told them how I've always been the one sacrificing, how they've always prioritized Jack, and that I was done being treated like I don't matter. I made it clear that if they choose not to come to my wedding, they are making their choice and I will make mine. With that, I walked out, leaving them to stew in their own decisions. Out of nowhere though, Jack started bombarding me with the nastiest, most hurtful texts I've ever received. He accused me of turning Liam against him, of ripping the family apart, and had the audacity to call me selfish for abandoning him. He ranted about how he never felt like he belonged in the family and how it is all my fault for pushing him away. His words hit hard, but they also opened my eyes. Jack has spent his whole life blaming everyone else for his problems, and I've been his favorite scapegoat. This time though, I am not letting him guilt trip me. I did not even respond, I just blocked his number. If he cannot see what he's done wrong, then there's nothing more to say. Liam was livid when I told him about Jack's message. He's more determined than ever to support me, and we've decided to go low contact with our parents until after the wedding. Liam's been a rock through all of this, helping me with the wedding plans and making sure I'm not dealing with this mess alone. So the wedding is still happening, but with a much smaller guest list. My parents have not reached out since our argument, and at this point I don't care if they show up or not. This day is about me and my fiancé, and I'm not letting anyone, not even my own family, ruin it. The next one is titled Person Gets Kicked Out of Wedding. My husband and I, both 27, got married a few weeks ago, and he obviously is still upset about it, but I don't think I was wrong, so I thought I would ask here. We only gave +1s to married couples or if we knew the SO well. My husband has one childhood friend that was coming from out of state to attend. I've met him a bunch of times, but only his girlfriend of 3 years a few times because of the distance. I did not want to give him a +1, but my husband begged since he was traveling and did not know anyone else at the wedding, and he didn't want him to be uncomfortable or have to travel alone. I said fine, just to make him happy. Flash forward to the reception, I see him with some girl I've never seen before. I asked husband what was up, and he told me that his friend and his girlfriend broke up a few days before the wedding, and since he already RSVP'd as two, he brought a friend with him. I was pissed since I made an exception for him and I didn't want anyone random at my wedding. I had one of my bridesmaids go to him and tell him he could stay, but can his date please go back to the hotel because this is a private event. He said okay and did not make a fuss, but he left with her and did not come back. I thought everything was fine and had a great night. My husband found out about it the next day and we got in an argument. He is mad because his friend traveled and I kick him out without talking to him. I did not kick him out, just his date. Now it's a few weeks later and my husband still brings it up from time to time and his friend has not been answering his texts. I kind of feel bad, but it was my wedding and I didn't want any strangers there. Comment number 1, you are the a-hole. What was the actual harm of this person being there at that point? And he had a +1 and it's unlikely he knew you gave him a dispensation on your special day. This comes off as power-hungry and controlling. You responded to perceived rudeness with the ultimate rudeness. You kicked someone out, which, come on, you knew her date was gonna follow, so you booted your husband's friend. You are a ginormous a-hole. You are the a-hole. Comment number 2, you gave him a +1 and he used it, and then you were rude and revoked it during the reception. His +1 did nothing wrong and was not causing a drunken scene or anything. And you got offended because she existed. Sorry, Bridezilla, but you're the a-hole. Next one is titled, Entitled Person Gets Revenged On. My girlfriend, you, I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce that, is a concierge at a high-end Niagara Falls hotel. Lately, I've gotten in the habit of picking her up after work because of this, and I've had the pleasure of watching her deal with a-hole customers, and today was just so juicy, I gotta share it. You was working the check-in desk that is part of her duty, so you can guess she deals with a lot of nutcases. I was just chilling in the lobby making googly I love you eyes at her while she was checking in a customer when this guy walks up to her and says hey to grab her attention. You said, sir, I will be with you in a moment after I finish checking this guest in. The guy did not like that answer and snapped his fingers in her face several times and said, hey little girl, I need help now. You gets this look in her eyes. Sometimes it's a look of pure sass and hate, and it's something I like about her. I think it's really sexy. You raises her hands and did exactly what the guy did. Snapped her fingers and said, hey little boy, I'm currently with a guest. You're gonna have to wait a few minutes for me to finish. The guy was in shock and shut his mouth and waited. Well, he got up to the front and went on a rant about how she treated him, that he's a premium customer, and you was in full smiles customer service mode. She looked up his booking and said, so you have the basic economy room today, sir. The guy decided to be pushy and said, well, you're gonna be upgrading me at no cost for the trouble. You said, unfortunately, that's not gonna happen. I can upgrade you, but there's gonna be an upcharge. The guy decided to be prickly and said, well, how would you like it if I cancel my booking? You replied with, so sir, you wanna cancel your booking? The guy does not know Hugh, and Hugh is spicy, another thing I love about her. The guy said, well, if you don't upgrade me now, how is that gonna make you look? And you put on a worried face and said, so if I don't upgrade you right now, you're gonna cancel? And the guy said, yeah, that's right. You smiled and said, okay, sir, I understand. You did something on the computer, looked up and smiled and said, okay, sir, you're all fixed up, you're good to go. Have a nice day. The guy has this look of confusion on his face and said, what? You was, oh, I cancelled your booking. The guy was obviously not happy and realized that his dickish behavior is not gonna get him any free upgrades. The guy then gave up and said, "Fine, I will take my room." Yu goes back to her computer and looks up with a big smile to say, "Unfortunately, sir, we are fully booked for the night." Yu just smiled and told him to have a nice day. The dude full on got pissed and said he needs to speak to the manager. Once again, Yu replied with a smile and pointed to her name tag and said, "Oh sir, I'm the manager." The guy did not get anything he wanted, the guy did not get to stay in the hotel, and I got to watch my girl in action. Some side information, I'm very proud of Yu, she just got her promotion about a month ago, her drive always impresses me. And the next one is titled, Retail Karens Are Insane. So the store I work for has a very famous dress code, X color shirt matched with Y color pants. We are encouraged to put on a coat when we are on the floor during our breaks, but sometimes it does not matter. So I had clocked out for the day and I'm out on the floor with my jacket on, getting some cleaning supplies before I leave. I got a basket and my earbuds in. Of course, that does not matter to this customer. We will call her Karen, thanks to FU Karen subreddit. Karen comes up to me and says, "Hey, you work here, right?" I pretend to not hear her, what with my music and all, and say, "Excuse me, sir, I will not be ignored by an employee." Me, "I'm sorry?" I take out my earbuds trying to act casual. Karen, "You work here, right?" "I saw you out on the floor with a name tag." Me, "Yes, but I've clocked out for the day." If you have a question, I would be happy to quickly answer it, but other than that, I'm gonna have to ask you to respect my time and find another employee. Karen then assures me that she'll be quick and then explains to me a long, complicated situation involving a return she would like to make that requires communication with the manufacturer of the item. I give her a minute or two before I cut her off and tell her that her question should be directed to guest services and point her to the GS desk. Karen, "But you didn't let me finish." Me, "I can tell that your situation requires more than what I can do in a minute. Now, if you'll excuse me, I do need to go." Karen, "But your job is to service me." At this point, I am losing my patience with Karen and I think she knew this. Me, "Ma'am, I'm not on the job right now and I need to leave. Please direct your issue to guest services." As I say this, I can tell this is not gonna end well. Thankfully, I'm standing next to one of our in-store guest service phones. While I am still talking, I pick it up and punch in the code that tells our security to hop on over to that location. Karen, "How can you say that? You are giving me bad customer service. Whatever happened to the customer is always right? What if I told your manager about your behavior here? I bet your tune would change then, huh? Just because you're not on the clock does not mean you get to stop doing your job." This is when my favorite security guy, we will call him Jesse because that's his name, shows up. Jesse, "Hi. How can I help you?" Karen tries to say something, but I hold up my hand and she keeps quiet, startled I think. Me, "This guest here needs to go to the guest service counter and is having trouble getting there." Using the word trouble like I did is our code for "Get this witch out of my face, they are harassing me." Jesse, "I can absolutely help you with that, ma'am. I will walk you there." Karen does not put up a fight and I pick up my shower cleaner and go. My favorite part was her telling me that just because I was off the clock, it doesn't mean that I get to stop working. Like, Karen, that's exactly what it means. And yeah guys, with this we have reached the end of the video. However, if you cannot get enough of my content, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel to not miss any of my daily uploads. And also check out my podcast by searching for Ripe Stories on Spotify, Amazon, Audible and other podcast platforms. You will often find exclusive episodes and early access to new content. Furthermore, please check out my Patreon by going to patreon.com/ripeyoutube or my YouTube membership program for even more exclusive stories. Thank you so much and I will see you again tomorrow.